This is the final word, T20 World Cup Daily, Day 6, a day in which Ireland played the West Indies and Zimbabwe played Scotland to see who would make it into the Super 12s. Jeff Lemon and Ben Jones with you, filling in for Adam Collins, the Crick Viz analyst who's got all the numbers, all the stats and all of the everything at his fingertips. And we're down on the beautiful Victorian surf coast. This is our last show for a little while working with Visit Melbourne, which is a campaign that wants people to visit Melbourne. Does what it says on the tin. I respect that, straight to the point. But we don't actually need that campaign for you, Ben, because you come out from England to visit Melbourne of your own accord all the time.
Often, yeah. I mean, I'll say it now, Melbourne's the best city in the world. It's quite rude to a lot of other amazing places that I've not visited yet.
Take that, Tokyo.
Screw it.
Take that, San Francisco. What do you got? Nothing.
London, the city I live in?
No
way. Melbourne is amazing. And I've been lucky to come the last couple of years quite a lot and spend a lot of time in Australia, and I can say that Melbourne is definitely the best place in Oz, but it extends beyond that. I spent a lot of time here with Colo as well, hence why I'm replacing him. First time I came here, he picked me up from Geelong Station. We drove along the Great Ocean Road, went and visited his parents at Christmas. Had that first time you have a 35-degree Australian Christmas, it's a bit odd.
Deeply confusing, yeah.
But you get over it because you're in such a lovely place.
Well, we're at the start of the Great Ocean Road here. Melbourne is the gateway to the surf coast, and we've come down here and we're standing just next to Bells Beach, basically down there in the hinterland behind me. If you're watching on the video, that's where Bells Beach is. I will go out on a limb. I will say the most famous surf beach in the world. So famous that they used it in the scene at the end of Point Break where Bodie disappears into the ocean, never to be seen again, ... Keanu Reeves doesn't know where he's gone. I think they actually filmed that in Oregon because it was too expensive to come out here, but they wanted the mystique of Bells Beach, and now you, Ben, have been to Bells Beach. You can tell people that.
Well, this is probably the greatest buddy cop film since that fine piece of work. Yeah, I mean, I don't think either of us would say we're world-class surfers, but if we're going to learn, it's the place to be.
Yeah, the place to do it is the most challenging and dangerous surf beach in the world. That is the place to learn. Right, things that were challenging and dangerous included the qualification stage for West Indies, who played Ireland. They've just wrapped up. Ben, I'm going to challenge you to tell me about that game in the space of 30 seconds or less.
It was a good day to bat in Hobart. West Indies come out. They've got a lot of power in the batting lineup. You're expecting that, although Ireland have got a lot of pedigree, it's only going to go one way. Not the case. They lose a couple of early wickets. Johnson Charles hangs around a bit. Kyle Mayers disappears. And then you think, okay, it's fine. They've got all that power in the middle order. All those IPL stars. In comes Gareth Delaney, takes 3 for Spitz. You lose Robin Powell, you lose Nicholas Puran, you lose Evan Lewis. All of a sudden the West Indies are scrabbling to par, if that. Probably 20 shy. Odin Smith comes in at the end, gets them up to 150. You think this is going to be a bit of a toss-up. Jeff Lemon in the pub says, Ireland are probably going to not do this. Not the case again. Paul Stirling and Andrew Balbirnie come out and absolutely destroy the power play. They take everything apart. Stirlo, world class. He is due an IPL gig any day now. And Balbirnie doesn't see it through to the end, but Lorcan Tucker comes through, takes them over the line. 9-wicket win, balls to spare. Ireland into the main dance, the big party. Welcome to the World Cup.
I like that you didn't use big dance there. That's something we have a set against the big dance here at,
I choked
at the
last
final
minute.
word. I know, you thought about it and then you backed out, and I think that was wise. 146 is what the Windies ended up making, and 150 for 1, the Irish reply. I mean, this was ripe for an Ireland falling over, and they just didn't do it. They just refused to do it. Paul Stirling, as you say, I mean, the ginger Santa Claus, he's a beautiful player to watch when he's up and going. He took them on early. Balbirnie went with him, and then Harry Tector just came in and took up the charge at the end. You were saying that I thought that Ireland might not do it. You said that Andrew Balbirnie was no good at T20 cricket. Ben Jones, respected data analyst,
that's up for debate,
Belbo can't play T20 cricket. And what did he do? He just peeled off 37 off 23 balls, including a lofted drive over cover point for 6, if you don't mind. Batted absolutely exquisitely, but it was real West Indies getting in their own way sort of areas in terms of the way they batted initially.
I think what's been so frustrating with this West Indies side for a while now is their record against spin. Generally, they've got so many wonderful pace hitters, and in theory, there are guys there who should be going out and absolutely whacking it through the middle overs. Guys like Puran. Hetmar's not here, but he's another one in that mould. And Robin Powell's become more versatile recently. Evan Lewis, not necessarily a spin guy, but he's got pedigree. And yet they just keep falling over whenever they're faced with anything that's turning into them or away from them or any which way, whatever.
Or just coming at them slowly. I think if you look at the two power plays, therein lies the difference. West Indies 41 for 2 after 6 overs. Ireland was 64 for none. And that 41 for 2, that power play, so Kyle Mayers and Johnson Charles are the two dismissed. In the power play, they both hole out going after the bowling. It was Mayers off Barry McCarthy and Johnson Charles off Simi Singh. And then it was Simi Singh, the off-spinner, with Gareth Delaney, the leg spinner. They were the ones who really put the clamps on. Simi Singh ends up bowling 2 overs, 1 for 11. Delaney, the full 4 overs, 3 for 16. And it just kept West Indies sputtering, that middle order bit, as you were saying. Lewis, Pooran, Powell, none of them could get going. They all got out, but they got out slowly as well, which meant they'd sucked air out of the innings.
Yeah, because even at the end, you've got Odin Smith coming in with a bit of a cameo, and you thought maybe Windies are still in this. Mm-hmm. But equally, they had guys to bat. There were still guys who were in the hutch who could have come in and made a difference. Akil Hussain, he's in there primarily for his bowling, but he hits a long ball, and so that kind of slightly cloggy middle order really just left the Windies with not much opportunity to fully exploit the full length of their batting lineup, which has been a real strength for them in this format of the game. That's where their power is all the way down. And left plenty on the table.
Brandon King, 62 off 48, not out. He did his best to keep things going through the middle. He's, I wouldn't say he's the most sophisticated player, but he just gives the ball a bash whenever it's possible.
Yeah, he's had a couple of good CPLs of late, and he's one of those players who kind of hovers under the radar a little bit for guys who maybe don't follow T20 cricket as closely. But this was obviously a big opportunity for him this World Cup, being given a go at the top of the order at number 4 in this particular case. But I think what he represents in a way is he's almost part of the problem in some respects, in that there's not many Brandon Kings, guys of that age coming through who've got quality, who can deliver consistently. Windies have struggled for bringing through that next generation, and they've had to do it almost all at once. All those guys who've been there in 2016, and a few of them hung on last year, they're not there anymore, and they need more of that kind of quality, that kind of age profile, otherwise just known as age. Don't know why I ever throw profile in there.
Mark Adair, none for 26 from 4 overs, also significant. But then Ireland, it was all about the way they went about it at the top. The two openers destroyed Akil Hussain. The 1 over he bowled went for 18, I think it was. Odin Smith, they laid into him as well, and then they had the confidence up and they started getting stuck into Obed McCoy and Alzari Joseph as well, so flying at better than 10 and over by the end of the power play. And Balbirnie was out a couple of overs after the power play, a slice to backward point, and ended up being the only wicket to fall. So Lorcan Tucker comes in 2 balls later after the wicket, sweeps a ball for 4, and you think, okay, well, they're not going to be intimidated today. Sterlo takes a couple of overs just to assess things, just weighs things up, and then starts getting stuck into the bowling again. Huge 6 from Alzari Joseph onto the grass banks up there. Goes after Odin Smith as well, brings up his 50 from 32 balls. And then what could have been a turning point when Lorcan Tucker plays a hook shot. He's caught off a top edge, but it's a no ball. Odin Smith has overstepped. Tucker's reprieved. He goes on to make 45 off 35 to take them home. Sterling's able to just tuck in behind him after making the early running, 66 off 48. And they've absolutely pissed it in. 1 for 150. They've knocked the West Indies out of the competition. West Indies will not make the next qualification stage. They're line ball to qualify for the next 50 over World Cup, and I'm not sure what ramifications this might have for qualifying for the next 20 over World Cup in 2024 as well.
We were discussing that. I think today was the day where I learned what ageing is, because I've always found it really annoying when people talk about and constantly go on about, the West Indies used to be so great at Test cricket, and whenever the Windies are playing a good Test and they've got an interesting side, and it's like, guys, Kim Roach is pretty good as well, and everyone's talking about Michael Holding and Malcolm Marshall. And I've always found it quite annoying. Today I was like, I get it. It's frustration. It's not nostalgia. It's about the fact that you think this could be so much better. That Windy side is of the last 10 years, that won 2 World Cups, that has been at the forefront, the vanguard tactically of the game in terms of developing how hitting works and how T20 cricket generally exists. It's no longer the case. They are not that side, and we knew that, but we thought there were green shoots. We thought there were opportunities for players to come through. Guys like Obed McCoy, who are going to be wicket takers. Guys like Rovman Powell, who have been hovering just below. Are they going to take the step up? Nicholas Pooran is world class, and they're no longer in the World Cup, and we've not left Geelong. So it feels quite bleak for someone who wants them to be good.
Well, they're gone. Netherlands through, Sri Lanka through, Ireland through, and we're about to head to Torquay to see who goes through out of Scotland and Zimbabwe. Okay, part two. We've gone from Bells Beach to Bells Beach Brewing. The big tank's behind us. We've been sitting in this very pleasant brewery for the last few hours watching Zimbabwe play Scotland.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Jeff, I'm far more at home here than on the surfing beaches. But I went for it earlier. I did the 30-second summary. Zimbabwe, Scotland, 30 seconds, Jeff Lemon, go.
Zimbabwe put the clamps on from the get-go. Tendai Chitara got Michael Jones out in the first over, and it didn't get much better from there. Look, they did their best. George Munsey made a half century. Kellen McLeod made 25, but they could barely get going at faster than a runner ball. 132 in their 20 overs, only 6 down. Wasn't likely to be enough. Zimbabwe, they had some stutters. They tend to do that, but it was Craig Irvine and Secunda Raza once again. Raza with a quick 40. Irvine made 58, and that got them most of the way there with a partnership of 64, and they ended up getting there with a couple of overs to go. They topped their group, and they're through into the main stage. Scotland out.
Much better effort than mine earlier, I think. Yeah,
I've done a lot more of them, to be fair.
Yeah, I'd be worrying if I waltzed in. No, I mean, Raza was the kind of point of difference you'd say. Obviously, not necessarily on terms of the runs on the scorecard, but there was tension when he came to the crease. There was a sense that Zimbabwe might not do this. That actually, for all the fact that Scotland were under par, there was a nervousness around the play, and actually Raza just has that, maybe call it form, call it quality, call it whatever you want. Yeah. That little something, and suddenly the game went out of Scotland's hands in a matter of overs. And even when he was dismissed, the spark had gone.
Well, he'd got them close enough when he was out, and he was hampered when he was out because he played a sweep shot, got a top edge into his throat. He was very uncomfortable for a good couple of minutes, couldn't get enough air in, recomposed himself, continued his innings, bombed another 6. And eventually was out for 40 in quick time. 22, 23 balls that it took him to score those runs. And that was the difference. On a day when nobody else could accelerate, really, nobody could get going, he was able to do that, punch enough of a hole in the Scottish innings and get them close enough. And there was a little bit of interest around what would happen with their net run rate, whether they would finish top of the group by chasing it fast enough. I guess it doesn't really matter where they finish, but in terms of if Zimbabwe were eyeing off a group with Australia, England, New Zealand, or a group with India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, South Africa, where would they be more at home?
Well, I mean, they've ended up in the Pakistan-India group, and I think that is where they're more likely to do a bit of damage. I think just the fact that you've got these tall seamers who are front-loaded, who can do damage with the new ball, there's opportunity to really get into some batting lineups in that group. Pakistan in particular, you'd say, that's the kind of banana skin you're circling, saying that's where, if you can get Rizwan and Babar early with those high-release, high-pace seamers, then all of a sudden there's a soft underbelly there that Zimbabwe could exploit. I mean, realistically, you'd rather, Zimbabwe don't want to be bowling to, a set Marcus Stoinis or whatever with their seamers in Australian conditions. It's nice to avoid the hosts. It's probably nice to avoid the favourites. They move back into this group with the more Asian with the Asian teams.
Sure.
You would say that they take that, and also from a personal point of view, it sets up an England-Ireland clash in the other group, which I like. From a purely kind of, there's a little rivalry there. There's a fair bit of niggle. I don't know if you're aware of that down the years between those two.
Bit of history, and also Ireland pretty good at beating England in World Cups.
And I'm very excited to see Josh Little tear into Joss Buttler early on.
Okay. Zimbabwe's bowling, I mean, they've got quite a well-rounded bunch of bowlers. I mean, the way that Chitara went about things, 2 for 14 from 4 overs, and that included 2 off the top and then coming back to bowl the 20th over as well. And that is an outstanding performance for an opening quick.
Yeah, again, it's this whole thing of Zimbabwe's skill set being skewed towards the new ball. It means that they have this element of unpredictability that actually, against Scotland, you'd expect their class to come out regardless. They're probably just going to beat them 9 times out of 10. But it gives them that element of something, that element of spark against the bigger teams where you're like, okay, well, if the new ball's swinging and the new ball's doing something, then Zimbabwe are going to have a crack. They're going to get stuck in. I mean, I'd just like to have a quick word on Secunda Raza, because I know that you guys have obviously spoken about him a lot. But he really is the guy right now.
All right, you do the numbers, like we do the emotions.
That is what I do.
We do the feelings about Secunda Raza. What are the numbers on Secunda Raza?
Well, I mean, in raw terms, we've got a previous measure called batting impact, which basically is just like a measure of goodness, of quality, of how...
A measure of goodness.
A measure of cricket. And this year, Raza's batting impact is the best of any T20 batter in any year ever. Now, I know you're going to say, well, ever is only 20 years in T20 cricket, but I was 7 years old when it started. I'm going to take it. That's proper history for me.
If there are 20 anythings and you're the best one out of the 20, you'd still feel pretty good about
exactly.
that.
And there's a fair few more than 20.
Yeah.
But Raza's in this glut of form with the bat, but also he's developed this thing with the spin bowling that he's kind of really pushed on, where he's become this kind of like
the
Moneyball Sunil Narayan.
He runs in and does this one.
It's all behind the back.
Yeah.
And there's a really good tweet. I direct people to, I think it's at the Cricket Arc on Twitter, who's kind of broken down the variations, and you can see these different deliveries coming out the side of the hand, the front of the hand, and suddenly it's like, what do T20 teams want really on the circuit? They want mystery spin.
Yep.
And they want back like late innings hitting.
Sure.
And Raza suddenly developed into like, oh, geez, this guy is the perfect player. Out of nowhere to an extent. We know he's been around for a while, but he's improved a lot, and suddenly he's going to light the World Cup.
And they're relying on him a lot with the bat. They feel like a one-player team with the bat, but not with the ball. So Richard Ngarava has had a couple of really good games, had another good game tonight with the ball. I mean, Blessing Musarabani, relatively speaking, went around the park tonight, but they had the depth in Shatara, in Ngarava, and in Raza himself with the ball, that they were all able to keep the run scoring down and keep that total very manageable.
I think that's what you often see with kind of lower ranked sides, is that they've got a couple of good bowlers, and then it falls off. And as long as you're sensible and you don't collapse in a heap against the good one, you can recover. Zimbabwe have got a little bit more depth, and as a result, a fair bit more threat. And Scotland probably are on the other side of the coin. They just lack that little bit of depth of the attack, and that's probably why they've fallen short. But they've still had an amazing World Cup. And I should say as well, this week's been amazing for like the smaller teams.
They did the Namibia thing. They beat the big team in their group, the main sort of higher ranked, full member, etc. country in their group, and then they weren't able to follow it up with beating one of the other sides to be able to go through. Which
is frustrating, and I know that some people have seen it as a flaw of the format, but ultimately, like, Namibia won 1 game from 3. That's not enough to go through. Scotland didn't do enough to go through, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the cricket and the competition and the narrative has been unbelievably good in this first week. Genuinely, I can't remember enjoying a week of cricket more from a standing start. We've rocked up. There's no backstory to this tournament. We've started 100 mile an hour.
Yeah, I agree, and we've got some compelling teams going into the main part of the draw, which will start from tomorrow, and we will continue. So this is our last show on the Visit Melbourne trip for a while, where we've been visiting all kinds of places around regional Victoria. So thanks to Bell's Beach Brewing for having us, and Hugh behind the bar, who's been very hospitable tonight, and everybody else who's welcomed us as we've gone around the country. Plan your Melbourne moment at visitmelbourne.com if you want to come and visit us in our part of the world, like Ben Jones does all the time. The Hall of Fame, we haven't done that. The most final word moment of the day, I think for me it was Sikandar Raza batting with both of his pockets turned inside out. Now, I don't know if he was being searched on his way onto the ground. I don't know if he wanted to do some sort of Dumbo impression, but he had these two sort of leg ears, like his thighs had grown ears and they were listening out for, I don't know, insults against the quad muscles or something, flapping around as he ran up and down the pitch. It was very Dumbo. It was beautiful.
I think my contribution would be my own enjoyment of your enjoyment of that moment when you suddenly leapt towards the screen, being like, this kind of childlike delight that, oh, man wears trousers wrong.
Yeah, it takes very little to interest me or entertain me. The rain is absolutely pissing down on the roof. You'll be able to hear that here as we're down on the beach of the Surf Coast, and we'll be back in Melbourne, Sydney, wherever it is that we're ending up tomorrow as Australia play New Zealand, and on it goes. The final word, World Cup Daily, can't stop and it won't stop. Thanks to Ben Jones for joining us today. I'm Jeff Lemon. We'll see you next time.